black CEO stopped at her own mansion gate. Minutes later, she fires the guards live on camera. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You don't belong here. The words snapped through the quiet like a live wire. Ava Williams froze, one hand resting on the black iron gate that guarded her own driveway. It was late afternoon, the golden hour that made marble glow like honey. The security booth light blinked red. The man blocking her path wore a pressed white polo, name tag shining, Richard Hale, head of the Neighborhood Security Council. His stance said authority, but his tone said ownership. Ma'am, this is a private estate, residents only. I know, Ava said softly. I live here. Richard let out a short, patronizing laugh. Sure you do. The two guards behind him exchanged looks. One smirked, the other shook his head. Ava stood still, wearing gray joggers, a simple hoodie, no jewelry, no luxury car behind her. Just silence and the faint hum of the gate motor waiting for clearance. Her smartwatch blinked. Home access denied. That denial hit harder than any insult. Because she had built this system, the gate, the software, the rules for her own safety. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ava. Richard stepped closer, eyes narrowing. You can step aside while we verify your story. What's the homeowner's name? Ava Williams, she replied. He scribbled something on a notepad, unimpressed. And what's your relation to Miss Williams? A slow breath escaped her lips. He didn't see the mansion behind her name, the empire behind her calm. I am Miss Williams. But her answer landed on disbelief. Richard turned toward the guards. Get the patrol car. We might have another trespasser situation. Mako, the second guard, chuckled under his breath. They're getting creative these days. Ava's hand tightened around the key fob. She could have pressed the override, could have let the system announce her title through the intercom, but she didn't. Not yet. Because this wasn't the first time someone told her she didn't belong somewhere she owned. The air thickened. The gate stood like a judge. Richard crossed his arms, scanning her head to toe. Next time, try using the front office instead of sneaking through resident access. You people think these houses are public parks. Ava tilted her head slightly. You people? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The smirk said enough. A car rolled to a stop behind her, a young delivery driver waiting to get in. The man inside leaned out, confused. They're not letting you through? He asked. Apparently, Ava said. I need permission to enter my own home. 2 videos. For a moment, the street went silent except for the buzzing of cicadas and the faint clink of the gate chain trembling under sunlight. In that quiet, Ava looked up at the surveillance camera, and smiled just slightly. Because she knew it was recording every second. And when the world would watch it later, they'd understand. She didn't raise her voice that day. She simply began the lesson. The wind carried the smell of wet grass and quiet money, that strange mix you only find in gated communities. Ava stood still, the weight of Richard's stare pressing against her calm like a test. Ma'am, we've already told you, Richard said, impatience sharpening his tone. You can't walk in here. This area's restricted. He didn't realize the gate behind him had been built from her own blueprints. She'd approved every detail from the biometric scanner down to the engraved emblem that now blinked red in denial. You can scan again if you'd like, she said gently. We don't take orders from visitors, he replied. Her eyes flicked toward the camera post. The lens followed every move. She knew exactly where the feed went, straight to the private security hub she'd funded, now manned by people who apparently didn't recognize their founder on sight. Ava adjusted her hoodie, the motion simple but precise. The guards mistook it for hesitation. Look, one of them said, half laughing. We get joggers like you all the time, just trying to sneak a peek at the houses. Go ahead and turn around before this gets awkward. Ava tilted her head slightly, scanning the driveway. The tall hedges on both sides swayed like slow applause. "And if I don't?" she asked. Richard's lips tightened. "Then we'll call the patrol unit. You'll be detained for trespassing." The word hung there, trespassing. She almost smiled. That's what they called it 20 years ago, she thought. Back when I walked into that university library without a student ID. Same tone, same authority, same disbelief that I belonged. Ava leaned closer to the biometric pad, pressed her palm against it. The scanner lit blue for a moment, then flashed, access, restricted. Richard folded his arms, triumphant. "See? Not your house." "Is not." She could have told him about the internal update delay, about how the cloud sync sometimes lagged by a few minutes after her system performed a maintenance sweep. But explaining to men like him was a waste of grace. Instead, she simply said, "Interesting. It worked yesterday." The younger guard, Eli, frowned slightly. "What's the name again?" "Ava Williams." He glanced at Richard's clipboard. Nothing. A blank line where her name should have been. "You probably mean Eva Wilson," Richard cut in, smug. "That's the family 2 houses down. Easy mix-up." Ava looked at him for a long second, not angry, just studying. The kind of look that made people realize she saw further than they wanted. "I don't make mix-ups," she said softly. The air shifted. Even Eli felt it. Richard stepped forward again, closing the distance like a man asserting property he didn't own. "Ma'am, I'm asking you nicely. Step away from the gate." 81. But Ava didn't move. Her silence stretched just long enough to make the younger guard nervous. He checked the camera feed again. The AI overlay pulsed for a fraction of a second before flashing a faint tag. "Owner. Ava Williams verification pending." Eli blinked. "Sir, I think the system's showing—" "It's wrong," Richard snapped. "Probably hacked. I've seen this scam before." The word scam cut through the air like a slap. Ava's jaw tightened for the first time. She thought of the years she'd spent building the company that built this neighborhood, the long nights negotiating contracts so that families like Richard's could live behind these walls feeling safe. And now here she was, being treated as the threat. The camera light blinked again, her face framed perfectly in the feed. Somewhere, miles away, a system pinged facial ID recognition pending, but no one here waited to see it. Eli hesitated. "Maybe we should double-check the database, sir." Richard scoffed. "No need. She's wasting our time." Ava sighed quietly, a breath not of defeat, but of decision. "All right," she said, stepping back half a pace. "You do what you need to do." She turned away just enough for Richard to think he'd won. But her fingers brushed her smartwatch one subtle tap. The security network link reconnected. The live feed uploaded. And for the first time that afternoon, the system knew exactly who was standing at that gate. Her, Ava Williams, owner, CEO, and the woman about to redefine what trespassing really means. The intercom crackled. Richard tapped his earpiece. "Yeah, dispatch. Got a possible trespasser at the main gate. Female, mid-30 seconds, athletic build, refusing to comply." His voice was calm, rehearsed, the kind of calm that only comes from thinking you're right. Ava stood a few feet away, sunlight catching the edge of her face. She didn't blink, didn't argue, just waited. That silence made them nervous. Eli shifted uneasily beside his post. "Sir, maybe she's telling the truth." The name matched for a second before the system. Before it glitched, Richard cut in, raising a hand. "You're young. You'll learn people like this use confidence as cover. People like this." The phrase rolled through the air like a poison. Ava folded her arms, the slightest tilt of her head betraying disbelief. "People like what, exactly?" Richard smirked, tapping the badge clipped to his vest. "The kind who think money or a nice car rental gets them into neighborhoods like this." Behind him, the gates hummed as another vehicle approached, a silver Range Rover. The driver, a middle-aged white woman, slowed to a stop, window down. "Is everything all right, Richard?" she asked. "Just handling a situation, Mrs. Lowell," he replied smoothly. "Someone tried to walk in without authorization." Mrs. Lowell's eyes swept over Ava from head to toe, the hoodie, the running shoes, the calm posture, and she frowned. "Oh, I see." She forced a tight smile. "Well, good thing you're keeping things in order." Then she drove through. the gate sliding open for her without hesitation. Ava watched the motion sensor blink green as the car disappeared inside. For her, it had blinked red. Same system, same camera, different treatment. Richard turned back, proud. See? That's what access looks like. Ava exhaled, her voice even. You seem very sure of who belongs here. It's my job, he replied, to keep this community safe. She stepped forward just a fraction. Safe from what? For a moment, the question hung heavy. Richard opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The truth sat between them, unspoken and ugly. The second guard, a stocky man named Harris, walked over, sipping from a paper cup. What's the holdup? This woman claims she lives here, Richard said. She does? Harris chuckled, looking her over. In which house, ma'am? The pool house. Eli flinched. Come on, man. Relax, Harris said, waving him off. Just a joke. But Ava's face didn't change. I've heard that one before, she said quietly. Never funny then either. Richard's radio buzzed again. Patrol unit en route. ETA. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That's all it would take for this to turn into a scene. Eli hesitated. Sir, maybe we should... Stand down, Eli, Richard snapped. You're here to observe, not question me. Ava looked at the younger guard, saw the conflict flicker behind his eyes. It reminded her of herself, years ago, before she learned that silence could either protect or betray. She spoke softly, not to Richard, but to Eli. What's your name? Eli? Eli, she repeated. When you look back on today, I hope you remember what you saw, not what you were told to see. Richard turned, scoffing. Don't try to manipulate my team. No need, she replied. Truth tends to do that on its own. The patrol vehicle rounded the corner, black SUV, tinted windows, the kind they used for quick neighborhood incidents. Harris grinned. Perfect timing. Eli swallowed hard. Sir, I don't think this is right. You're not paid to think, Richard said. Ava stood still, eyes calm as glass. The sound of the engine grew louder, crunching gravel under the weight of ignorance. Then a faint ping from the control terminal inside the booth. Access update, completed. Eli noticed it first. Sir, you might want to see this. Not now, Richard barked. No. Seriously, look. The display flashed in bold letters. Owner verified access granted, Ava Williams. Richard froze. The words glowed against his reflection on the glass. He turned slowly, eyes wide, but before he could speak, the gate began to slide open on its own smooth, mechanical, unbothered by human ego. Ava stepped forward, the faintest smile touching her lips. Looks like the system finally caught up with reality. The guards didn't move. Eli exhaled in relief. Richard's face turned pale. The SUV stopped mid-drive, unsure what it had arrived for. Ava passed through the threshold, the gate closing softly behind her, not with noise, but with finality. Inside the stillness, she whispered almost to herself. Always takes them a few minutes to recognize ownership. But her phone buzzed a message from Nia. Footage uploading. All feeds live. Do you want to escalate? Ava looked back once more at the men behind the gate. Not yet. For now, she preferred them to wonder how a woman they dismissed could command the ground beneath their feet. The gate clicked shut behind her, but on the other side, chaos was brewing. Richard still stared at the monitor, blinking like a man who just realized he'd picked the wrong side of history. It's a system malfunction, he muttered. Has to be. Eli said nothing. He was still watching the screen, where Ava's name glowed bright across the access log. Owner. Ava Williams verified. The words pulsed like a heartbeat. Unignorable. The patrol SUV rolled up, 2 additional guards stepping out. They were older, heavier, carrying the posture of men who thought uniform meant power. What's the situation? One asked. Possible breach, Richard said, forcing control back into his tone. But she's claiming ownership. The senior officer squinted toward the mansion gates, now sealed again. And you let her inside? The system glitched. We're verifying. 82. Inside the property, Ava paused halfway down the stone path, listening. The conversation carried faintly through the intercom speakers. Her house had ears everywhere. She heard every word, every doubt. Ava turned back, her face half-shadowed under the warm dusk light. Through the steel bars, she could see Eli torn between orders and conscience. He stepped toward the console again. "Sir, this log came straight from Central Ops. It's not a glitch. It says verified owner." Eight Walls says, "You think I don't know how this tech works?" Richard snapped. "Apparently not," Eli murmured. That earned him a glare. "Watch your tone, rookie." The senior patrol guard folded his arms. "Let's call dispatch. Get a confirmation code." "Do it," Richard ordered. "I'll have her escorted out before sunset." Eli's patience cracked. "You can't escort out a homeowner." Richard spun around. "You don't get it. Women like her, they play these games. Fake IDs, fake credentials. You saw what she looked like." Eli stared at him, disgust rising like heat. "Yeah, I did. I saw someone who handled your attitude better than most." The air thickened. Harris, the stocky guard, laughed nervously. "Man, let it go. You'll get yourself fired." "Maybe some people should," Eli said under his breath. Ava pressed her smartwatch. A quiet ping activated the outer gate's microphone. Every word was being recorded now. She didn't need to shout through the speaker. The truth was doing its work for her. From the corner of the street, a cyclist slowed down, watching the scene phone out, camera already recording. Then, another jogger stopped. One clip, one upload, and 100 strangers would see this unfold in real time. Inside the booth, Richard rubbed his temples. This is getting ridiculous. Why would the system verify someone who clearly doesn't belong? Eli didn't answer. Instead, he leaned over the console, checking the entry log history. His eyes widened. "Sir, this entire community was registered under one holding company, A.W. Holdings, LLC. So that's her initials. Ava Williams." Richard froze. For the first time, doubt cracked his voice. "No, that can't be right." Eli looked at him, jaw tight. "I think you owe her an apology." The patrol guard frowned. "Hold on. This whole place belongs to her?" "Apparently," Eli said. "Everything, the houses, the gates, even this booth. Ever by Rivrit." End quote. Outside, Ava took one slow breath, eyes closed. She could almost feel the tide shifting, that silent, inevitable turn when truth becomes heavier than pride. Richard's radio buzzed again. "Central Ops here, confirmation code received. Property owner, Ava Williams. Repeat, Ava Williams. Full access authorized." Every sound in the booth died. The only thing left was the electric hum of the gate. Eli looked straight at Richard. "You just called your boss a trespasser. With their 5 a separate—" "Oh, Lord." Richard's mouth opened, then closed, his face drained of color, and then the sound of a phone. Ava's phone. "Miss Williams?" Nia's voice, calm and composed. "Live surveillance is synced. All footage secure. Would you like me to alert the PR team?" Ava smiled faintly, watching the cluster of guards from the other side of her own fence. "Not yet. Let's give them a chance to realize what they've done." Inside the booth, Eli's conscience finally won. He turned toward the camera, pressing the intercom button. "Miss Williams," he said clearly, "I want to personally apologize. I didn't." Richard slapped his hand away, killing the mic. "Are you insane?" Eli stepped back, anger rising now. "No, I'm done pretending I don't see what this is." He turned to face the others. "You all saw it too. The system verified her, twice, and you still tried to remove her. Because what? She didn't fit your picture of a millionaire?" No one spoke. Even Harris looked away. Ava's gaze softened as she watched the young guard take his stand. The first spark of integrity, small but powerful. The kind that always starts revolutions quietly. And somewhere inside her house, a notification blinked. "Live view active. 1,237 watching." The world was already tuning in. The sun had slipped low, stretching long gold shadows across the driveway. The hum of cicadas was broken only by the static from Richard's radio. Every word now felt heavier, sharper, like something waiting to snap. Ava stood at the top of the marble steps leading to her front door, still in her gray hoodie, still holding the same quiet composure. Yet the scene outside the gate was anything but calm. Richard's voice cracked through the intercom again. "Miss Williams, for your own safety, I'm going to need you to remain outside until we sort this out." Eli turned sharply. "Outside?" She's inside, sir, in her own property. Wildo. Richard ignored him. His pride wouldn't bend. Not now. Not in front of witnesses. This whole situation is a security breach, he snapped. Until I get clearance, she's staying right there. Ava could hear him, every condescending syllable, but she didn't move closer to the gate. Instead, she sat down on the steps, calm, centered, in full control. Her phone buzzed. A message from Naya lit the screen. Camera feeds synced. Audio recording clean. Public stream not yet live, awaiting your word. Ava typed back only 2 words. Keep rolling. Then she lifted her eyes toward the horizon, and for a split second, the world blurred into memory. Charlotte, 2003, 16 years old. Dressed in her best church clothes, she had walked into a department store downtown, looking for a graduation dress. A saleswoman had followed her aisle to aisle, whispering into a walkie-talkie. Then 2 security guards appeared, blocking the exit. Empty your bag, one said. But I didn't. Now, they made her turn it inside out, right there in front of strangers. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't hold the zipper. No apology, no eye contact, just the assumption that she didn't belong. The same tone, the same power tilted in the wrong direction. A car horn snapped her back to the present. The patrol SUV still idled by the gate, exhaust curling through the late light. This isn't over, Richard muttered, pacing. No way she owns this place. Not dressed like that. Eli's patience finally cracked. Dressed like what? Richard stopped. Come on, kid, don't do this. No, Eli said, voice shaking now. You treat her like she's invisible until she proves herself. That's not protocol, that's prejudice. Harris looked uncomfortable. Hey, don't make this a thing, man. It's already a thing, Eli said. You just don't want to name it. The air turned brittle. Ava could see the argument play out through the security camera feed on her watch. Each word recorded, each face illuminated by their own arrogance. She stood up slowly, her figure framed by the mansion's stone pillars. Then she spoke clear, steady, her voice carrying through the intercom. Richard Hale. The use of his full name made him flinch. You've spent the last 20 minutes trying to keep me out of my own home. You've insulted me, ignored your own system, and refused correction from your team. He straightened, defensive. You can't talk to me like that. I'm the head of security here. Not anymore. Her voice didn't rise, but the tone made the air itself pause. Ava stepped closer to the gate, the light behind her turning her into a silhouette of calm authority. You said I didn't belong. You said people like me don't live here. She took another step. But you know what, Richard? You were right about one thing. He blinked, uncertain. What's that? People like me don't just live here. We built here. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the patrol guard shifted, unsure whether to speak or salute. Richard's jaw clenched. This is harassment. I'll report you. Ava tilted her head slightly. You should. To me. I own the company you work for. We're closest to play. Eli's eyes widened even though he'd suspected. Hearing it aloud hit like a shockwave. The patrol guard froze mid-motion. Harris muttered a curse under his breath. And in that moment, with dusk settling in and the first porch light flickering on, Ava reached her breaking point, but not in anger. It was the breaking of patience, the end of pretending not to see what she'd endured a lifetime of. She pressed her smartwatch again. Nia, she said calmly, initiate Protocol 6. A pause. Then, a voice on the line. Confirmed. Live feed starting in 3, 2, 1. The small LED by the gate camera blinked red live broadcast engaged. Across phones, screens, and feeds, people began watching. Not a protest, not a scene. Just one woman sitting at her own doorstep, ready to teach the world and a few guards what ownership truly looks like. The gate camera blinked, red live feed online. Somewhere in the cloud, 1,000 phones buzzed to life. Naya's voice was calm in Ava's earpiece. We're live. 28 viewers? No. Wait, 100 and climbing. You sure about this? I've never been surer, Ava replied. The evening wind carried the faint hum of a neighborhood that didn't yet know it was about to become a case study in grace under fire. Richard barked into his radio, unaware that every word was being streamed. Turn that feed off. Who authorized cameras? You did. Eli said under his breath. The moment you accused her. With problem self. Richard spun. What did you say? Nothing, sir. But it was too late. The tension had changed form. The one giving orders wasn't in control anymore. Ava stood by her front steps, the calm eye of a storm she no longer needed to escape. The soft blue light from her smartwatch illuminated her wrist as she spoke quietly into it. Nia, bring up my system interface. Her phone screen flickered, loading rows of security access logs and contract IDs. The entire neighborhood's surveillance network, the same one Richard bragged about running, was linked to her company's private servers. Ava swiped once. Access hierarchy displayed. Richard's name appeared 5 levels below hers. Eli, watching from the booth, whispered, "Oh my God." Richard caught the look. "What are you staring at?" "Your boss," Eli said quietly. The intercom light blinked green. Ava had taken control. Her voice came through every speaker on the property, calm and even. "Mr. Hale, this community's security grid operates under a system called AWH-net. I created it. Every badge you wear, every gate you monitor, every feed you review belongs to me." Richard froze. The patrol guards looked at each other, confused. "That's impossible," he muttered. "This is managed by Sterling Security, a subsidiary," Ava replied, "of AW Holdings." The silence that followed wasn't simple shock, it was hierarchy realigning itself. Eli's expression shifted from fear to something close to awe. He whispered to the others, "She owns Sterling," Ava continued, her voice steady, almost surgical. "You could have verified me in seconds. Instead, you chose to assert dominance you never had. You called the patrol. You turned suspicion into policy." Richard's hands shook. "I was just doing my job." "Your job," Ava said softly, "was to protect the people who live here, including me." Well, her words cut like glass, precise, clean, impossible to argue with. The red light of the camera pulsed again. Nia's voice came through. "Viewers now at 4,000, ma'am. Hashtags forming. Number she owns it. Number gate justice." Ava didn't smile. She didn't need to. Richard tried one last push. "This isn't fair. You're making me look like a fool." "I didn't make you," she said. "You did that the moment you decided appearance was proof of worth." Is red. The sound of the gate motor whirred behind her, the system automatically unlocking full access. Eli approached the booth controls and hesitated. "Ma'am, the protocol, do I disengage the patrol alert?" "No," she said. "Let them come. They'll need to understand who really signs their checks." The SUV's engine idled louder, headlights painting the scene in harsh white light. But now, even the officers inside hesitated to step forward. They'd seen the feed. The world had. Ava walked closer to the gate, her voice low but carrying power like a current. "You thought I was a stranger," she said, "because I didn't perform wealth the way you expected, but the real performance tonight." She gestured lightly toward the camera. "Is yours." Richard took a step back, his voice breaking. "You planned this." "No," she said. "I just stopped hiding when you gave me the stage." Behind him, Eli exhaled a shaky breath. He touched the badge on his chest, then unclipped it and placed it on the desk. "I'm done," he said. "If this is what protecting means, I want no part of it." For the first time, Ava's expression softened. "Not all systems need tearing down, Eli," she said. "Some just need better people inside them." He nodded, his face pale but resolute. The patrol radio crackled again. "Unit 47 to base, situation resolved. False alarm." But nothing about this night was false. Because as the sun finally dipped and the lights across the estate flickered on, the balance of power had shifted completely, quietly, publicly, irreversibly. And through the hum of the gate and the glow of the camera, Ava whispered to herself, almost like a vow, "Never again will silence be mistaken for permission." The street was silent except for the faint buzz of the live feed. The red light on the camera blinked steadily, an unblinking witness. And in that moment, Ava decided the truth didn't need an audience. It needed clarity. She walked toward the gate, each step deliberate, her shadow spilling across the pavement like a verdict being written. On the other side, Richard stood stiff, trying to hold what little authority he had left. His eyes darted between her and the phone screen, glowing in his palm. the one that showed his face already trending online. "Miss Williams, listen, maybe we got off on the wrong foot," he stammered. "I didn't mean any disrespect." Ava stopped a few feet from him, the steel bars between them gleaming under the streetlight. "You didn't mean it," she said quietly. "You just did it." The words hit harder than a shout. Eli looked down, ashamed. The patrol guards shifted uncomfortably. The power dynamic had inverted. She no longer needed permission to command the space. The air itself seemed to wait for her next sentence. She held up her phone, the live stream still running, her face calm, voice even. "For everyone watching," she said, "this isn't about a gate. It's about assumption, about how quickly a woman who doesn't fit your picture of power becomes a suspect in her own success." Richard opened his mouth to speak, but she raised a hand, small gesture, absolute silence. "You called me a trespasser," she continued, voice steady but carrying. "At my own home. You dismissed your own system. You ignored the man who tried to tell you the truth. Ividit." Eli's eyes flicked up at that, the acknowledgement cut through him. "And now," Ava said, "you're worried about how you look on camera. I suggest you be more worried about how you acted off camera." Richard's breath stuttered. "You're humiliating me." "No," Ava replied. "You did that to yourself. I'm just letting the light in." For a long moment, the only sound was the wind moving through the trees. Then she took one step closer, her face inches from the bars. The gate light reflected in her eyes, calm, commanding, unbroken. "You wanted to protect this neighborhood," she said. "So let me make this simple." She turned her screen toward him. On it was the full property deed, her name embossed in gold under the title A. W. Holdings, founder and chair. Below that, the Sterling Security employment roster. And at the very bottom, Richard Hale, contracted site manager. His face drained of color. Eli's breath caught. Even the patrol guards took a step back, as if the hierarchy had just physically rearranged itself before their eyes. "You work for me," Ava said softly. "You have for 3 years." Richard stammered, words failing him. I didn't know." "You didn't want to know." She let the silence stretch, letting the weight of the moment land where it needed to. "Every company, every neighborhood, every policy you enforce, you do it under my name," she said. "And yet tonight, when you saw me without the markers of status you recognize, your first instinct was to exclude." Her voice lowered, not in anger, but precision. That's the danger of small minds in big uniforms. Richard blinked rapidly, his chest rising and falling like someone who just realized the floor beneath him wasn't real. The feed number in the corner of her phone climbed 5,000, 7,000, then 10,000. The entire internet was watching a man unravel under the weight of his own prejudice. Ava didn't gloat. She didn't even smile. Instead, she spoke with the same composure she'd held since the beginning. "You called me a trespasser in my own home, Richard. That's more than disrespect. That's defiance of truth. And in my company, truth isn't negotiable." Nia's voice came through her earpiece, almost reverent. "Ma'am, the board is seeing this. They're standing by for your directive. Happen is 240. Ava nodded slowly, her gaze never leaving Richard's trembling face. Then they already know what comes next. She looked up, her voice firm, not loud, but final. "Effective immediately, Richard Hale. You're relieved of your duties. Your access card, your clearance, your title revoked." The system responded instantly. His badge light turned red. The access gate beeped once denial tone. He stepped back as if the sound itself burned. Ava exhaled softly. "You see, Richard, power doesn't shout. It simply stops asking for permission." And with that, she ended the stream. The camera light dimmed. The gate stood open. For the first time that evening, she stepped forward not as someone being questioned, but as the answer itself. The feed had ended, but the silence it left behind was louder than any broadcast. For a long moment, no one moved. The air around the gate felt charged, the kind of stillness that happens right before a storm breaks. Ava stood steady, posture relaxed but eyes unblinking. Richard's shoulders were hunched, his radio limp in his hand. His badge still flashed, red access denied. Eli watched from the booth, face pale under the fluorescent light. He'd never seen power look like this, quiet, deliberate, absolute. The first words came from Ava, calm as ever. "Mister." Hale, please hand over your company phone and keys. He blinked, confused. What? You're no longer employed here, she said. You can turn those in now or wait until legal sends for them. Either way, this conversation is over. Her voice was even professional, but it cut through him like a verdict. Richard looked down at the badge again, pressing it against the scanner just to be sure. It buzzed. Red. He tried again. Buzz. Red. There must be some mistake. No, Ava interrupted softly. This is the correction. Behind him, the patrol guards shuffled uneasily. Harris glanced at Eli, whispering, "She can't really fire him on the spot, can she?" Eli gave a half laugh, one part disbelief, one part admiration. "She can. She owns the company." Richard turned sharply. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" Ava tilted her head slightly. "No, just aware of where I stand." He laughed bitterly, trying to find footing in arrogance. "You think people are going to care about this? You think they'll side with you?" Ava gestured toward the faint reflection of the security camera still blinking above the booth. They already did. A single ping echoed from her phone, a notification. Live replay, trending number 1 Los Angeles, 2.1 million views. Richard's expression cracked. The man who'd been so sure of his authority was suddenly surrounded by proof of his irrelevance. He looked at Eli, then Harris, searching for support. None came. Eli took a step forward, unclipping his badge and laying it gently on the counter. "Ma'am, if you'll have me, I'd like to stay on. But not under his leadership." Ava met his eyes, nodding once. "Integrity has a place here, Eli. Always." He exhaled. Relief, gratitude, disbelief, all at once. Richard's voice rose, desperate now. "You can't just walk in here and—" "Richard," Ava cut in quietly. "I didn't walk in. I came home." That line landed like a thunderclap. Even Harris stepped back. Ava turned toward her phone. "Nia, confirm full deactivation of Hale's credentials." "Done," came the reply. "Also, the board just sent a statement they're backing your decision." "Completely." Ava looked back at the man who'd spent the last half hour policing her existence. "You see, this isn't about punishment. It's about alignment. You wanted control. I wanted accountability. And now, the system finally matches the truth." Richard dropped his phone into her waiting hand, fingers trembling. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Ava smiled faintly, but there was no malice, only calm certainty. "I don't operate on regret, only results." The gate motor whirred again. The lock clicked open, smooth and final. Eli stepped aside as she walked through her steps, slow, deliberate, the gravel crunching under her sneakers. The patrol guards instinctively straightened, almost out of respect. Harris murmured, "Guess she really is the boss." "Always was," Eli said quietly. Richard stood alone now, framed by the cold light of the booth, a man undone by the very system he thought he commanded. Ava stopped once more at the threshold, turning just slightly. "Mr. Hale," she said, "one day, I hope you understand this wasn't about race, gender, or ego. It was about respect, something you can't demand, only earn." Then she turned away. Behind her, the camera light blinked once more before shutting off final record complete. The night swallowed the sound of her footsteps as she disappeared up the stone path toward the mansion that bore her name. Inside the booth, the silence hung heavy until Eli finally spoke. "You know," he said quietly, "she didn't have to say a word. But she did for all of us." Harris nodded slowly. "Yeah, and she did it without raising her voice." From somewhere inside the property, the automatic lighting sequence flicked on rows of golden lights, illuminating the house like a crown under the night sky. Ava paused for one last breath before stepping through her door. Justice had been served not with noise, but with presence, and the world had watched it happen in real time. The house was quiet when Ava stepped inside. Soft jazz played from the built-in speakers, the same playlist she used to end her workdays. The marble floor reflected the evening light in muted gold, a stark contrast to the tension that had just unraveled outside. Her smartwatch buzzed once. "Nia, everything's been handled," the assistant said gently. "HR filed the termination notice, and PR is flooding the headlines with your official statement. You're trending globally, Ava. Number, she owns it, has crossed 8 million views." Ava exhaled, not out of pride, but release. Good, she said. Let it trend for the right reason. She walked toward the glass wall that overlooked the city below, the same skyline she'd built her empire in. From up here, the streets looked small, the chaos distant. But she knew what tonight would mean to people down there. Those who'd been stopped, questioned, dismissed, just because they didn't look like they belonged. For a moment, she closed her eyes. The flashback came again. Her 16-year-old self standing in that Charlotte store, hands trembling as the guards emptied her bag. No apology, just humiliation. That girl had learned to swallow her voice. Tonight, she gave it back to herself. Her phone chimed again, a new message. Eli. Thank you for not letting silence win. Ava smiled faintly. That's the point, she whispered to herself. Silence isn't peace. It's permission. She turned on the lamp by the entrance, its light spilling softly across family photos, awards, and framed blueprints of her earliest real estate projects. On the center table sat a bronze plaque. Founder's Vision. Build places where dignity is not gated. End quote. Outside, security drones hovered briefly over the front gate, scanning for final clearances. The system chimed. All personnel revalidated. Access secure. The gate, the lights, the neighborhood, all of it was hers again. But more importantly, the narrative was hers again. Ava poured herself a glass of water, looked straight into the reflection of her own face on the window. They'll say I overreacted, she murmured. They always do when a woman uses authority instead of asking for it. 2. Izard. Naya's voice came through softly in her earpiece. Then what will you tell them? Ava smiled, a quiet, weary, victorious smile. That respect shouldn't depend on the outfit, or the address, or the color of the hand holding the keys. She took a sip. The city lights glittered beneath her like 1,000 small witnesses nodding back. You didn't shout, Ava, Nia said. You didn't even raise your voice. No, Ava replied, setting the glass down. I raised the standard. It is. The line hung in the room like a signature. A notification blinked across the TV, a news anchor's voice filling the air. Breaking. Viral video shows Black CEO confronting discrimination at her own mansion gate. The clip has sparked global discussion about race, power, and dignity. Industry leaders are calling her response a masterclass in calm authority. Ava muted the screen. She didn't need to hear the commentary. The footage spoke for itself. She opened her front door again, stepping out onto the marble steps where the confrontation had begun. The night was still. The scent of rain was in the air. Down the street, the same neighbors who'd watched from behind their blinds earlier were now peeking out again, cautious, curious. One of them, Mrs. Lowell, stood frozen at her driveway, unsure what to say. Ava gave a small nod, not of forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Good evening, she said simply. Mrs. Lowell hesitated. Miss Williams, I didn't realize that I lived here? Ava finished for her. The woman's cheeks flushed. Yes, I'm sorry. Ava didn't answer immediately. She just looked up at the stars beyond the iron gates and said, almost to herself, we all live here. That's the part people keep forgetting. Then she smiled, not wide, not smug, just enough to remind the world that dignity, once reclaimed, doesn't need to shout to be heard. The camera drone hovering nearby caught that final image. Ava standing tall beneath the glow of her own porch light. Quiet and composed, the gate open behind her. No longer a barrier, but a symbol. The screen faded to black, her voice lingering like a promise. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. And for millions watching around the world, that line didn't just end the story. It started a movement.